useless. This is too much madness to explain in one text.
We have to call the police.
You'd be better off calling the Ghostbusters, love.
My name ain't Gavin, it's Mayhem, and he's Probs.
Arthur kills us. No one's gonna ever call you Mayhem if you keep on acting like such a pussy.
We're going to Ron's weed room.
That's the safest place in the block.
What's Ron's weed room?
It's a big room full of weed, and it's Ron's.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's movie review of Attack the Block. Why Edgar Wright projects and work related to him or his team never do gangbusters in the box office is beyond me, because he is not only one of the greatest comedic minds in terms of directing, but he has a perfect track record with quality work. Spaced was a witty and humorous take on Slacker's life using dry humor. Shaun of the Dead was an excellent parody of zombie movies and a love letter to George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Hot Fuzz paid its due to buddy cop films and the action genre with wit, yet again, and hyper-editing, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was not only genius, but an excellent and faithful comic book adaptation, which is a feature rarely seen in comic book films. And yet, after having delivered another gem, his work continues to go underappreciated. The work of brilliant people truly aren't noticed till it's too late in the game. But I'm getting off topic a bit here. Attack the Block tells the story of a South London street gang struggle to survive an alien onslaught, as well as protecting their turf, a building known as The Block. While first-time director Joe Cornish wrote and directed this film, you can tell that Edgar Wright and his team had a helping hand on this project, judging from prior works associated with Wright and his team. But despite this, there seems to be an excellent merger of styles between Wright and Cornish, and while the film's premise seems like a simple horror film chase, it is far from that, and more complex than the naked eye will lead you to believe upon a first glance. From the get-go, we are introduced to our protagonist in a most unlikable and rarely seen manner. No heroics or good deeds of valor. The film starts out with a mugging at knife point with a group versus a single woman. Fair, right? You would think that such an introduction makes our main character seem like an anti-hero or straight up unlikable due to the turn of events. But even that is not as simple as it seems, but we'll get to that later. Upon committing a crime, what appears to be a small meteor crash lands on a car, causing the victim to make her escape, and our not so fondly perceived heroes to investigate the scene for valuables they may steal when the lead gang member Moses is attacked by a small creature. The gang gives chase, hunts the creature down, and kills it. From there, an increase of bigger versions of the creatures arrive in mass numbers, consuming and killing everyone in a struggle for survival. It is said that Zombieland is America's version of Shaun of the Dead, and if this is the case, then Attack the Block is London's version of The Goonies. The film pays a great homage to The Goonies, and the group of kids generate the feeling that the cast from The Goonies did. But with their own spin to it, of course. The group has its own hierarchy, with each character having their own special trait that is all their own, letting everyone stand out while no one is to be shadowed by any one person or moment. There is Moses, the silent yet brooding leader of the group. Then there's Pest, the big mouth and comedic centerfold of the group, and my personal favorite character, Jerome the nerd, the hard-ass Dennis, Sam the mother figure, and Probs and Mayhem as the duo members, to name a few, and the list does go on. Everyone has their own personality traits, and they all shine throughout the film, but what's more important than that is their perception and journey to redemption that they travel throughout the entire film. We all have some sense of perception when we see things. If someone or something looks scary, then our reaction is that it must be what we assume it to be on first-hand sight. But that is not always the case, and the film showcases this brilliantly. Yes, Moses and his group are thugs to an extent and do rob a woman, but in situations like this, fingers are pointed and things are assumed, with the end result having no insight or knowledge. Despite some of the bad deeds the group has committed, the film intellectually gives you insight into the lives of these characters. They all, for the most part, come from good homes and have good caring parents and guardians who can be considered as noble people. They have friends who stress concern for positive actions, and Moses, as well as the other members of the group, not only care for the safety of their home, but the people in the entire block as well as each other. And the things they do are not done for the sakes of shits and giggles, but more as a last-ditch effort to keep themselves afloat and survive. They act out of desperation for the greater good. And when that stress isn't placed on them, they don't do anything bad. So in actuality, one can argue that they aren't bad people, and to assume who they are on first glance doesn't give you the full story of the person. Yes, our characters are in a street gang, but that is the life that the area has forced them into. And if the situation is desperate enough, any good person can commit a crime. The basic gist of all this is that looks can be deceiving, and the film has mastered this philosophy. At the start, it comments on the fact that the group of kids are a bunch of monsters, but when a real terror or bigger threat comes in, then we are forced to have some perspective in order to see who the monsters really are. With that out of the way, performances were all excellent without a single weak link in the chain. From all ranges, each cast member added their own flair to their characters and performances, making them all the more charismatic, and Nick Frost is always funny in this as he is in anything else he has done. I also enjoyed the fact that the film lets the kids show their acting chops for the entire movie. I mean, hey, if you have talent, then why not focus on them? In films like this, you sometimes run across the problem of having the cliche where kids have to interact with the adults in some manner because no one believes them. But Joe Cornish decided to take a different approach and make his kids independent and willing to face their problems head on. For all we know, this is probably the lifestyle they may have been raised into, to fend for oneself. With this new spin, the film becomes fresh and showcases more realistic character traits, even in an unrealistic situation or world. In screenwriting, there is a saying that states that you should write what you know, and Joe Cornish has masterfully showcased this. He himself grew up in South London and was witness to these groups' lives and situations, and it shows in the mannerisms and dialogue of the characters. From the way they dress to the use of UK slang, Cornish nailed all of them on point. Some may complain that they can't understand the people in the film due to the slang, and while some of the words and phrases were initially unknown to me, it wasn't enough to take away from the film. Humor is also quick and witty, and not just restricted to London places and things. And American vernaculars are used in the film, and many conversations have a Kevin Smith type feel where they seem to carry a sense of realism. As if you could picture your friends having the same conversation, which makes the film all the better and more relatable. Pacing is also excellent as the film starts in high gear and doesn't let up, and it manages to pull this off without sacrificing key aspects like story, plot, or character development. You are always informed while the action continues to elevate. The film also brilliantly mixes horror, comedy, and science fiction with a perfect blend, as nothing oversteps its boundaries. It feels like a nice mix of The Goonies, Aliens, and Clerks. I also love the use of practical effects in this film. There was almost no CGI in this film whatsoever. At most, it was used as a layer on top of the monsters. And even then, the creatures were suits from top to bottom, including the glow-in-the-dark teeth. Practical effects feel and look real, and when used right in combination with CGI, you can create more realistic creatures that don't have the flaws of restricted movements that practical effects have and the unrealistic look that CGI has alone. District 9 is the best example of this use of practical effects, and Attack the Block perfectly takes notes from that film in this department, resulting in a new and unique movie monster that completely outclasses the clusterfucks that Hollywood constantly puts out in terms of CGI creatures. Like any good movie, character change and development is required in order to make the audiences care, and this is seen with the character of Moses. We see him travel the road of redemption as some kind of thug who transitions into a person willing to sacrifice himself to not only make amends for his misdeeds, but to save the people he loves and cares about. The impact of these feelings and actions would have been less had Moses been a perfect and good person from the get-go. People are flawed creatures, and sometimes in order to become a better person, we must learn from the mistakes we have done. This is fully realized to Moses, and in the film's climax. Musically, the film remains strong with a vibrant electronic track and use of old-school rap including overseas music, and the constant use of foreshadowing is also brilliant. Like with Scott Pilgrim, I noticed different things I didn't catch the first time or during previous viewings of the film. And this is all the more interesting as it results in the movie getting better with each viewing because it manages to remain new despite repeated viewings. Cinematography, while being amateur at times, remains sleek for the most part, and I've always been a fan of the digital look of some overseas films. If you can't already tell by now, I obviously love the hell out of this film, and I think that anyone who gives this film a shot will too, because it's truly an epic. Oh yeah, and can any British people please tell me what A1 and proper means? Ever since seeing the film, I've been wanting to know what they mean. With that out of the way, Attack the Block gets an excellent 10 out of 10.